Yeah, so I thought I was going to die when I first got diagnosed, and I thought I was going to die when it came back in July.
What was that feeling like?
That's really scary, particularly when it's like you wonder, again, like you become very outward looking, and I was just thinking, how would my parents handle my death? How would my partner handle my death? To be honest, like it's not a road you want to go down or think about.
That's Michael Shafar.
He's a glass half full kind of guy who's such a good comedian, he's been able to make his own harrowing battle with cancer funny.
If I could make cancer funny, I don't really feel like anything else should be that hard.
In 2017, Michael was busy making his mark as a stand-up comic when he made the costly decision to ignore one of his testicles growing to more than double the size of the other.
I think it would have been, maybe probably 4 times bigger than my left one.
By the time he went to the doctor, the testicular cancer had already spread throughout his body, and he was only given a 50% chance of making it.
We did like a CT scan probably on a Monday or something, and that showed that it had spread all throughout my abdomen and chest. So I had tumours. I had like 100 tumours just in my lungs.
But he was determined to make the most of that chance and never stopped performing throughout the grueling rounds of chemo.
Out of hospital and going out and doing gigs.
Comedy gives him purpose, and surviving cancer has given him plenty of material. Michael's been in and out of remission and still isn't totally out of the woods, but he's not letting that hold him back. Welcome to Young Blood, an award-winning podcast on a mission to make the mental health of young men a top priority. My name's Callum McPherson, I'm a journalist, and this is our platform to open up and share stories of what we've been through, because we're not alone. Let's do it. When was the first time that you thought something might be wrong with your junk?
Great question. I like how you asked the question that I demanded you ask
That's
first.
what we're here. That's what we're here for. Straight for the balls.
Well, I'm Jewish, so I was circumcised when I was like 8 days old. So I guess that was probably the first time where I was like,
Very direct.
Yeah. But then I had testicular cancer. So probably the first time I thought there was something wrong would have been like maybe March 2017. But I didn't end up going to a doctor until like probably, I think it was October 2017.
So why did you think there was something wrong?
My right ball was getting big, basically. And it was just bigger than my left one.
Yeah. So why'd you ignore it?
Because I am a man.
Yeah.
And I just assume everything's going to be fine. And I was 26. Like I hadn't really thought about my health in any serious way until, then. So I just assumed it would be fine. And I was right. It was all fine.
Well, was there pain as well and discomfort?
No, yeah. So that was one of the reasons why I guess I probably waited so long, was because I just assumed like if it was cancer or something serious, like I'd be pissing blood, like I'd be in pain. Like,
yeah.
I just thought like there'd be like those really obvious signs.
Yeah. You just thought, I'm just getting a bit of extra nut growth.
Yeah. I just thought
it must comes with age.
Just going through a growth spurt, You hear about old men, their balls falling down. Yeah. And anyway, I think I just assumed it was going to be more like in your face if you had cancer, like you would know for sure.
Like you wouldn't be able to ignore it, sort of a thing.
Exactly. But I was like, well, like I've been ignoring it and getting by, so it can't be that serious. That was kind of like my view.
Yeah.
And then interestingly enough, I saw Lance Armstrong's doco, and he kind of said the same thing. Like he didn't go to the hospital or go to the doctor until he started coughing up blood. So
yeah, men like to wait till the last possible moment to pull up.
I feel like even with me, if I was coughing up blood, I'd be like, I'll give it a few days.
It's like I could be related, but maybe I just drank too much. Right.
Yeah.
So how big did it get?
I think, I don't know exact numbers, but
I didn't expect you that you measured it. But
well, they actually, do you know what though? Because I had it removed, and so obviously they measured it when they removed it.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact.
And you're like, that's one of the biggest you've ever seen.
I'll be like, I'm going to put that on the wall. Actually, can I keep it? I want
Have they got a wall? Have they got a wall of nuts up there?
They should have a wall, shouldn't they?
The Hall of Fame.
The Ball of Fame.
Yeah.
I think it would have been, maybe probably 4 times bigger than my left one, maybe, let's say.
Right.
But the thing also is that because my right ball had always been bigger than my left, a bit. I thought, maybe has it always been like that? I don't know. I think I deluded myself.
Yeah, and so your brain sort of plays tricks on you where you try to justify to yourself.
100%. I spent months just being like,
it was always like kind of that big. Maybe it's like a little bit bigger, but actually it was like so much bigger.
So much bigger.
Yeah. But I guess you had a lot going on with your life at that time. You didn't really have time to have testicular cancer.
I was flat out. Did not have time for cancer at all. Had to make time for it, but like I just got on a gig writing like for the project on Channel 10, which I still do a bit, which is nice. But I was doing that full time, and I was like doing my first show at the Melbourne Comedy Festival and kind of touring it around.
Yeah,
so
you had shit going on. But
yeah, I was pretty flat out. And it's crazy to me that I was doing all that stuff and dying from cancer at the same time. I was actually kind of
it's
impressed.
pretty impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed about
I'm
how
sure
I could function.
the doctors would have been impressed as well.
And the doctor's like, this guy, I mean, he's struggling, but tell you what, he's getting through it.
And when they saw like this, because I'm assuming you eventually went to the doctor in October and showed them the size of your nut, and they were like, what the fuck? Is that what happened?
Well, my doctor, he kind of looked at it straight away and was like, okay, well, we're sending you obviously for an ultrasound and a blood test. And I think he kind of knew straight away it was cancer, but you do the test obviously to confirm it.
Yeah.
And then, it was a Friday, went to the doctor Friday morning, and then, a couple of hours later, I was told I had cancer.
And so what do you remember from how that went when you were diagnosed and how it felt to get hit with that? Was it something that you sort of had an inkling in the back of your mind you didn't want to face up to, or what was it like?
It's kind of very surreal when you get the diagnosis. I remember I was watching like the news at the time, and you get a call from the doctor, and then he's like, "You've got cancer. You should come in and see me tomorrow." And then like that's the end of the phone call, and then like the news is still playing. Like it's just very surreal.
So it's not even face to face. It's just on the
I
phone.
got told over the phone.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
but to be honest, like I don't think it would have made a difference to whether it was face to face or over the phone. So he called me, and that's how I found out. And it takes a while to process that. The first few days, it's just real kind of. You don't even know what's going on.
Was it emotional, or did you feel empty from it?
Certainly emotional, yeah. And like the hardest thing is, of course, I had to tell my partner, Amanda, who we've been together for over 10 years. That's, probably the hardest conversation I've had to have. And then my parents were overseas in Spain at the time on holiday. They'd been
I'm going to ruin their holiday.
Completely ruin their holiday.
Yeah.
So, those are probably the hardest things.
But you're already worried about other people. So more so than yourself, even in those two examples.
Interestingly enough, I became extremely because I'm a very self-absorbed person normally, and then when I got cancer, I became very much, well, not the opposite, but a lot less self-absorbed in the sense I was thinking, how am I going to make this as easy as possible for the people that care about me, which I think is probably how most people react to that kind of news. So yeah, that's kind of that was my first reaction. But things move so fast. Like I got diagnosed on Friday, and then I had my testicle removed on the Monday, and I started chemo on Thursday. So,
and did they tell you where it was at, like how much it had spread and grown? Did they know by that stage?
Yeah. So we did like a CT scan probably on the Monday or something, and that showed that it had spread all throughout my abdomen and chest. Fuck. So I had tumors. I had like 100 tumors just in my lungs, which is crazy. Again, like I was still like going to gym and. Yeah, doing exercise, and I was full of cancer. Like, so it's crazy to think that you can kind of be that late stage and not know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
guess it just goes against our sort of idea of what we think cancer is, which I don't know where we've even got that from. Not from science and research, but from movies or whatever society says happens when you get cancer, and when you feel like you can still do some stuff. Must have been a shock for them to say that you have 100 tumors.
100%. Yeah, which I think is really important for people to understand. I mean, you don't want people to be, hypochondriacs and freaking out all the time, like, oh shit, I might have cancer, I don't know it. But it's certainly important to understand that, that sometimes the symptoms are not going to be very, very obvious, and sometimes it might be a culmination of things that, combined lead you to that conclusion. Like for me, like I had back pain for a while. I was getting kind of a lot of like little coughs and colds and stuff like that.
But not something that you're going to sort of tie in with what's going on until you look at the full picture.
Exactly. And then like obviously when you get the diagnosis, you're like, oh, okay, well that explains everything. But yeah, I guess it's important for guys to understand that, yes, like you could be functioning normally for a very long time, but still have, a very serious disease. And so just, checking things at the first sign of it is really important.
Yeah, because it's the case with testicular cancer that if you get it early enough, they can pretty much lop that nut off and it won't spread, and
exactly.
your prognosis is much better.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I think probably because it's one of the most curable, treatable cancers, I think most guys, notice that their ball gets big, they go to the doctor, it's removed. And so long as it hasn't spread like the lymph nodes or anything like that, then you don't have to do chemotherapy or anything. You're just good to go, and they just monitor you.
But with it having spread that much, like your odds must not have been great.
No, I was told it was about 50-50. Yeah, so yeah, that's kind of pretty scary to hear.
Yeah, and straight into surgery.
Straight into surgery. So yeah,
what were they operating on straight away?
Removing my right testicle.
Yep.
Yeah, so we did that first, and then we started the first cycle of chemotherapy, which is called BEP.
So they weren't operating on any of the tumours?
No, there's just too many. Like, they'd be there for fucking
forever.
Weeks trying to remove it all. So what they do when it's kind of like spread that much, that's when they do chemo.
Yep.
And then what happens is after you do chemo, there's often, if you respond well, that's great. But even if you respond well, there's often like still little spots around the place. And those spots can be like benign and nothing, or they can still be like residual cancer. So usually the way they do testicular cancer is like they'll look at those spots, they'll look at them for a while and see if they change. If they're changing, they'll cut them out. So overall, over the past few years, I've had 6 rounds of surgery. Because they've had to do chemo, observe, remove a couple of spots, see where they are. So I've been racking up. I want to get like one of those cards that you get like from a loyalty program.
All right, so you can get your next one free.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get the next one free. The cost does rack up. So yeah, it'd be nice to. Anyway, I'll ask.
Your health insurance must be looking to get rid of you. I think
it's actually one of my favorite things to think about. Is I spent $1,500 on health insurance. And I did the maths. I reckon I've cost them maybe 150 grand.
That feels good. That's a good bet.
Oh, it's genuinely satisfying. You know what I mean? Because when I first bought the health insurance, I was like, oh, I'll never use this. Yeah. Here I am.
They must just be sitting there going, this fucking guy again.
My theory is that because I'm with
who has 100 tumours?
I'm with Australian Unity. I reckon in the boardroom of the CEO, they've got a picture of me on a dartboard and they're just throwing darts.
Public enemy number 1 at the top of the board.
Do not insure this piece of shit.
What sort of impact did it have on your partner and on your family? And was that harder than actually going through the chemo and stuff?
Yeah, I do wonder if it's easier to be the person with cancer instead of the person who's watching the loved one with cancer. I'm not sure what the answer is, but I would certainly prefer to be the person with cancer than watching a loved one. That's just my personal view on it. I just think it'd be so hard. I know it was really hard for my partner and my parents, just watching someone you love, just being so sick and potentially dying. I don't know, how I would be able to handle that. I don't know how they handled it, but they were pretty amazing, extremely resilient and optimistic the whole time. And, I've, gathered so much, I think, more respect for, my partner Amanda and my parents for the way that they just, were always there and were never negative, or at least never showed it to me, never showed concern or anxiety around me. It was really amazing.
And was it the attitude of always sort of trying to find a silver lining or laugh at it and try to keep it upbeat as much as possible without faking it, obviously? But what was the mood like sort of through this whole process?
Yeah, surprisingly, we were pretty upbeat, me, the family, and my partner, honestly, cracking a lot of jokes about it. That's just kind of what I do. That's just how I handle everything. It's just, making jokes about it. I just think it's maybe the only sane way to respond to those types of situations. I think it's really hard. I didn't want to be someone who became defined by my cancer, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people,
there's so much more to you, and you've achieved all this stuff, and there's a lot of aspects to your life. You didn't want to just be that's the guy with cancer.
Yeah, and I understand the irony of me now, kind of doing shows where I talk about having cancer, and everyone's going, "Oh, no, that's the cancer guy." Yeah, exactly. So I have completely failed in that regard. But what I mean by not being defined by it, I think that a lot of people get an illness and it totally consumes their life, in the sense that from the morning they wake up to the morning when they go to bed, they're always thinking about their illness. They have to deal with it constantly, or they have a lot of anxiety about it.
Yeah.
Whereas I kind of try to like be someone who's going through cancer treatment and then still does other things as well. And like, it's not like cancer's my whole day, if that makes sense. So like I was doing like, you know, chemo, and then like I'd be out, you know, out of hospital and going out and doing gigs and writing and working and stuff.
And what do you think that did for you?
Everything. Yeah. It was like so crucial. I think I would have been so miserable and depressed if I couldn't work and gig and do the things I like doing.
Yeah.
So
because then you feel like it's really stopped you being who you need to be, who you want to be.
100%. I think if it stopped me from doing that, then I'd feel like it had won. But
and do you think that you got a lot of positive energy from that helped you get into remission and keep going?
Yeah, sure. Look, I don't know if there's a scientific basis for like, I'm not sure if laughter is the best medicine. You know?
I've heard.
I feel like chemo was probably more effective for me though. Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I'm sure that there's a lot of research on this. I'm not convinced that having a positive mindset means that you're physically going to recover better or faster. I don't know if that's true.
But it kept your mind going though.
Yeah, 100%. It just meant I didn't like wallow in depression and anxiety, which was really helpful.
Except for when you could take the piss out of it, which you obviously do well.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of to find myself in that way.
How did it affect your comedy? Like, what did you find was funny about going through all this? And
it's very fun talking about death on stage. I don't know why.
It really just it goes straight to the core, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's really fun. I really enjoy doing it. And because I'm someone who, you know, faced death and still has to continue to think about that.
And we all do to a lesser extent.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of all do, I guess. But I guess I have credibility in the sense that I can talk about that and no one can say you shouldn't talk about that.
Kind of like the Grim Reaper of comedy.
Yeah, for sure. That should be my next show.
That should be your poster cover. That'd be mad. I can see that.
I really like talking about dark stuff on stage. I think I've always enjoyed doing that. I just think it's really important that people do confront their fears, you know, death or whatever that is.
Do you think that means that it then controls them less if we have more times where we're able to actually talk about it and laugh about it? Perhaps that makes us better able to cope with it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know I can only really talk about my own personal experience.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I know that me being able to talk about it and laugh about it and share those funny thoughts and experiences with an audience really helped me mentally deal with what I was going through. It kind of made it seem less crazy and less severe and less extreme, if that makes sense. Like if you can joke about something, well, it can't be that serious.
Yeah, here I am joking about it. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think for me that's useful, and I know for some people in an audience, like I've had lots of cancer survivors come to my shows, and for me to talk about death and talk about cancer on stage in a funny way, hopefully, you know, they've actually said to me afterwards like, oh, that was really kind of
therapeutic sort of.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say therapeutic because that seems like a really wanky thing to say, but it's kind of like, but it certainly was an opportunity for them to laugh at their experience, which they might not have done for years. So, you know, psychologically.
And there's a lot of cancer survivors out there and people with cancer, you know.
So many. I mean, like, you know, I think that's why, that's also why, like, if you talk about cancer on stage, at first I thought like, ugh, audiences aren't going to go for this. Like, it's too heavy. Like, no one wants to come to a comedy show and hear about cancer, you know. But because there are so many people who have had cancer or who know someone who's got cancer or whatever, it's so universal and so relatable. Sadly, it's very relatable. And as a result, it kind of just seems to resonate and connect.
Or maybe any time that you have material that has a lot of emotion and feeling connected to it, there's like the potential to make it funny.
Yeah, for sure. When the stakes are high, it's easy. It's easy to make something funny when the stakes are high, if that makes sense. So like if I'm doing a joke about dying, like the stakes are high in this joke, you know what I mean?
Especially if the audience knows like he might actually die.
Yeah. Sometimes I finish sets by going, okay, sorry, I think that's my time. Not like my time, that's the end of my set. And usually people freak out by that. But yeah, when the stakes are high in comedy, I've learned that's when you have the biggest, when you create a lot of tension, that's when you have the biggest release and therefore the biggest laugh. So absolutely, if you create a lot of tension by mentioning the word cancer or dying, then you have that opportunity for a bigger laugh.
And what did it actually do for your career? Did it actually improve things?
Do you know what? I think it did. Absolutely. I mean,
You're like, that's why I did it.
Look, maybe I'll come back again, all right? Then we can get my own TV show if it happens again.
Back from the dead.
Maybe I'll take up smoking. I don't know. No, I mean, it has in the sense that it's given me something new to talk about, and it's given me probably a new audience as well. I think it's made me better at comedy too, just because it's forced me to write about a really, challenging topic. And it's like, well, if I can make cancer funny, I don't really feel like anything else should be that hard, if that makes sense. So it gives me a lot of confidence to kind of just tackle any topic now.
And so you got through your initial phases of chemo, and you had a number of surgeries, and you got to the point where you're into remission. But was that all still in 2017?
Yeah, so basically my timeline was I started chemo in 2017, and then in the middle of 2018 we did another round of chemo because we saw there was still some like residual kind of cancer remaining. And then I was in remission for about 2 years. And then middle of last year, 2020, we saw that there was still like cancer was starting to grow back again, which is kind of unexpected. Usually like if you're kind of clear for 2 years, like they reckon you're good. So that was, I felt like I'd been diagnosed again. That was, a real awful shock. Then in July last year or August last year, we started the next phase of chemo, which I just finished up a couple months ago.
And what was the result of that?
It's been really good. Like it's been very effective. We don't know the results for another couple of years, if that makes sense. So, but the doctors think that they've got it all. So, I've been told that before. So I'm always, it's nice to hear, but I still carry that, little inkling, that little anxiety in the back of my head, which I just try to kind of deal with and control in my day to day.
Yeah. And so what has the last sort of year been like for you overall? Because I guess you're still going through this, but you wouldn't have had comedy, or certainly not being able to go out and perform. So that's your outlet and where you get a lot of that joy from. Yeah,
well, it sounds crazy, but I felt like the world was shut down. So it was not the worst time to be going through chemotherapy treatment because there was nothing else. It was either
the world's ending, so
might as well jump on board, No, but it just kind of felt like it was either be at home and just do nothing because we're all locked down, or like go to a hospital and just
I can really focus on getting through my cancer sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So that was kind of, I guess, somewhat of a silver lining. I didn't really feel like I was missing out on anything by being in hospital for a few months.
In fact, there were lots more people in hospital for a while there as well.
Yeah, exactly. There was people even worse than me. Yeah. So I guess, mentally made it somewhat easier to deal with. But there was also that, because when you go through chemo, your immune system is compromised. So, when COVID's going around and you've got a low immune system, that's pretty scary too. So I was kind of pretty shut off from people for months just to make sure I didn't pick up any bugs.
And how did you go with that? Are you a bit of an introvert or are you a people person?
Surprisingly, I was actually fine. It's weird that like I really like doing comedy and speaking to a crowd, but I'm also like totally fine just kind of like staying home for a few months too.
Yeah.
I think I've always been pretty, I don't know what the word is. I'm not sure if introvert's the right word, but like I'm pretty like self-motivating, self-driving, if that makes sense.
You like your own company as well?
Yeah, I kind of just like
kind of like myself, man.
Yeah. No, I mean like I just kind of sometimes I enjoy just being alone with my thoughts and being able to write. And
well, I guess your line of work's very intense as well, and you're going out and putting those shows on and traveling often when things are back on. Sometimes it makes sense that you just want to get some space as well.
100%, yeah. Like if you're just out gigging every night and, always being on, it's actually really nice to just kind of be alone sometimes too.
How did you go performing when you were going through chemo and you were feeling, obviously it makes you feel pretty sick and you have to get up there and you can't really have a day off in comedy, I assume, and you're performing on stage for an hour or two. How did you go still bring the energy to it, or was it able to sort of become part of the act?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like, definitely like hard because I'd walk on stage and I'd certainly not be feeling amazing. Mind you, I felt pretty good. Like in between cycles, you actually do tend to feel pretty good. But it was more that because I looked unwell, I think it was just like, it was a bit jarring for an audience. Like I was, bald and looked pretty pale and, I just looked crook.
It makes the jokes hit harder though.
Yeah. It does certainly help some jokes, absolutely. But I kind of made the mistake, I think, at first where like I wouldn't really deal with that on stage. Like I wouldn't deal with the fact this is how I
You wouldn't say that you felt and looked shit.
Yeah. And if you don't acknowledge that, the audience is kind of like really confused. They just think like, is this his Make-A-Wish? Like, what do we do here? So you kind of have to. So I learned to basically deal with that. That was probably the only real challenge though of doing comedy, kind of going through that state, to be honest. And once you deal with that, then the audience is kind of very on board. They're very they want you to do well.
Yeah, and I suppose because it takes guts to do it. Although it is good material and it makes you feel better, it still takes balls to go and make light of something like that, which is obviously what makes it funny as well.
Yeah, they give you. Yeah, the audience does give you a bit of leeway and a bit of credit for just being on stage, for sure.
You need that extra handicap.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take what I can get.
Have you ever thought you were going to die from this?
Yes. Twice. So when I first got diagnosed, I was like, oh, I'm going to die.
Because that's what the doctor said.
I had a very, very pessimistic doctor.
Just on the phone.
You're going to die. Anyway, come in tomorrow. We'll chat more about it. Oh, man, that GP I don't see him anymore. He was actually, he diagnosed me, but he was didn't have very good bedside manner. Yeah, so I thought I was going to die when I first got diagnosed, and I thought I was going to die when it came back in July.
What was that feeling like?
It's really scary, particularly when it's like you wonder, again, like you become very outward looking, and I was just thinking, how would my parents handle my death? How would my partner handle my death? To be honest, like it's not a road you want to go down or think about. There's no solace at the end of it. So I think I tried to not let myself think about that too much.
Yeah, easier said than done.
Yeah. Absolutely. But tell you what, when I've got like I said, my partner's amazing, my parents are great, and I think they helped me not think about that too much too.
Yeah. Do you have some times when it got to you though? Did you find yourself sort of in periods of depression or anxiety from it or anything like?
Do you know what though? I don't think so. Like, I don't think I had anything you would call like clinical or diagnosable depression or anxiety. I think mentally I was fine throughout it all. I always feel like, we are often quick to medicalize, people's emotions, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, of course, there is such a thing as depression and anxiety, and of course those need to be treated. I just felt like in my situation, like I know what was causing my sadness and my anxiety.
Yeah,
it was having cancer.
Beyond your control as well. So.
Yeah, it's just a natural, organic response to your environment, isn't it? So, I never felt like my mental health was kind of, compromised, to be honest. I felt like it was just a natural response and a normal response to my situation. There were times where I was offered to see a psychologist, and even my oncologist would say to me, like, I think you're fine. Like, I don't think you need to see a psychologist. If you want, let me know, but I don't think you need. And I was like, I don't think I need either. But again, like I'm talking from the perspective of someone who had an amazing support network. So certainly for people who don't have that support network, and
everyone responds differently, and it seems like an important thing for you was that you could still live your purpose and you could still go out and do what you wanted to do, largely with your shows and stuff. So you weren't just sitting there with everything having fallen apart and you couldn't go on with what you were doing. You had the strength to be able to carry on and the opportunity still to do that, which sounds like it was pretty important. Yeah,
absolutely. Again, if I had not been able to do that, then maybe I could have really, descended into, depression and anxiety. But fortunately, I don't think I ever got to that point.
What strength do you find in laughter personally? Like, what does it do for you? And I suppose your idea of yourself and...
Well, it's just validation. I think all comedians have this very bizarre kind of paradox of being extremely like egotistical and narcissistic, because you kind of have to be to feel like you should be on stage and everyone should listen to you.
Yeah.
But equally, like, all comedians are also extremely insecure because we are very needy and desperate.
You need that validation.
Exactly. And that's kind of, I'm sure there's some deep psychology to it. I'm sure I was probably, damaged as a child in some way. Who knows? But I've got that desire, that need for, that kind of validation, I guess. So when I'm on stage and it's going well, then I feel like, oh, great, I'm validated, as a person, which is very unhealthy, by the way. Like, I certainly would not recommend that to anyone to put your validation in the hands of strangers is not a healthy way to live your life. So I'm trying to not be like that. And
you must have bombed at some point.
Oh, quite a lot.
Every comedian.
Quite.
In fact, I've never succeeded.
Yet to have a laugh, actually. So I'm just happy to be here.
They really don't like the cat's material.
I'll tell you what, the cancer material really takes a dive. Yeah, I mean, like, it's just part of the process. Bombing is part of the process of doing comedy. Like, if you're not bombing, you're not trying anything interesting on you. So it's part of the process, and just accepting that, if you bomb on stage, like, it's fine. It's just, learn from it, and the next one will probably be better. And, it's just it's a cycle.
How long have you been doing comedy for?
Since I started doing comedy in 2014. So,
okay.
Yeah, coming up to 7 years this year.
Is that starting late?
I don't know. I think like some people start at 18, and I wish I did. But then again, if I was like 23 when I started.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think, it would have been good to start at 18. I would have been so much further along.
But maybe you wouldn't have known what was funny. It's
100%.
hard to know.
Think about what I was like as an 18-year-old.
Yeah, you're probably not cynical enough at 18, hopefully.
Yeah, I would have just an idiot. I mean, all 18-year-olds are just morons, and I was the same. So what would I talk about, So I probably just wasn't ready. My view is like you kind of start comedy when you're ready to start comedy. And if you're 18 and you put yourself on stage, well, you were ready to make that decision for yourself then.
Yeah.
So I kind of just started when it was ready for me. Some people start at 30.
Why did you get into it? Were people always saying, "Oh, you're pretty funny," or
yeah,
do you always have a bit of a question in your mind if that's something that you might want to do? Or?
Yeah, like I just loved going to comedy shows. I was always it was always so much fun for me, and I was always like the funny guy in the friendship group. But
how did that translate from making your friends laugh to getting on stage and making people laugh on?
Yeah, I mean, like it's a big jump.
It's a much tougher crowd. Yeah.
Yeah, when they don't know you or like you, and you have to get them to know you and like you pretty quickly. It's a big jump, but and it takes probably maybe 2 years before you're not awful. I think,
which is a lot of rejection to be able to get past, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, and I think the reason why I started at 23 or 24 was because I'd never really failed in my life, in the sense of like I went to school, I did well at school. I know it sounds like a really shitty thing to say,
but undefeated.
No, but I never failed because I
can't lose.
But it's more I never failed because I never taken risks, if that makes sense.
You've been playing it safe.
Yeah, exactly. Like I kind of went to school and like I did the subjects that I was good at and did well. And then I went to uni and I did the stuff that I was good at and did well. So I was kind of always doing well, but that's just because I was just choosing things that I was going to do well at.
So you wanted to push yourself.
Yeah, and comedy was always scary to me because it's like you're definitely going to fail at it for quite a while before you become even okay. Yep. So I think just that fear of failure stopped me from doing it. And then eventually I was like, well, it's either like fail, on stage or like pursue a career that is going to make me miserable. And eventually the fear of like, being a lawyer kind of was... trumped the fear of being on stage. I was like,
I'm just getting crickets. Yeah,
exactly. So, but I'll tell you what, once you kind of liberate yourself from the fear of failure, it's so much better.
And how much does that change the other aspects of your life? Like when you gain that confidence to be able to get on stage and make people laugh, or even if they don't, you're not going to let it get to you. How did you notice that sort of affected you outside of comedy, or do you very much sort of switch on, switch off?
I try to keep it separate, as in like I try to keep like comedy separate from the rest of my life, just because I don't want to be defined by like that one thing in my life, and I don't want it to dominate my whole life, whether it's comedy or cancer or whatever. Yeah. But I certainly felt like, I just think that I became a better person once I started doing comedy, because once I started failing more, I became a lot more humble. I think I was really cocky when I was like in my early 20s.
Because you never failed at anything before.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was like, geez, I'm fantastic. Like I haven't failed at anything.
Yep.
So it was really nice.
So was it humbling doing comedy?
Super humbling. Yeah. And it kind of made me feel like I didn't have to always be the best or successful to matter, if that makes sense.
And in fact, if you are, that's not very funny.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't help at all if you're successful.
No one wants to come and see the guy who's like better than them.
Yeah, my early material of, hey guys, I've never failed at anything before, does not fly with the audience. So yeah, it was interesting to me how, once I became used to failure and was kind of humbled by that, I think it kind of meant that I wasn't like cocky and arrogant in like other aspects of my life, because I was like just getting rejected and beaten down on stage every night. So that just kind of...
It's good for you.
Yeah, I think, well, for me it was good. I think for some people maybe not, but it was good for me.
And how's your view of life changed since going through cancer?
It's interesting, like people always expect cancer survivors to have a very deep and profound view on life. And I don't think I do. I don't think that I've really changed that much from cancer, because I think I was kind of doing what I wanted in my life anyway before I got cancer. So the fact that I didn't really change anything kind of just confirms to me that I was probably always doing the right thing for me anyway, if that makes sense. Like some people, go through cancer, and like I know some people who have been like, they go through cancer and then afterwards they survive, and then they divorce their wife, or they change careers, or they...
You're already doing that thing that you want. So it sort of reaffirmed that you were on the right path.
Yeah, exactly. I felt like I was already doing the thing that I wanted to do. I mean, the fact that I was like, going on stage in between chemo bouts kind of was clear that this is the thing that I enjoy doing the most.
Obviously, you really wanted to do it.
Yeah, like if I didn't really want to do it, this is a great excuse not to do it, but I was still doing it.
But I know what you mean in that it makes people evaluate their lives and think about, okay, what do I need to keep and get rid of? And I need, I might die tomorrow. I need to go after what I want in life. And you found that, I already am. So that must feel pretty good to know that you're on the right path.
Yeah, very satisfying, because I felt like, like I said, I could have been a lawyer. Like that was kind of like meant to be my career and everything.
Before you disappointed your parents.
Yeah, absolutely shattered them.
I'm not sure ruined their holiday as well.
I'm not sure what was worse, the cancer diagnosis or me saying I'm going to be a comedian. Both difficult times for mum. But I just think that, I just think that I was kind of already on that right track. And had I been like a lawyer, I think I would have been like, what a nightmare to like having chose a career in law and then to die from cancer anyway. Geez, that's an awful kind of turn of events. So, I think it's nice to remember that, no matter what you do, you're going to die anyway. So might as well do the thing you want to do.
To all the lawyers out there.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
There are some people, my girlfriend's a lawyer and she actually does like being a lawyer, but not for me.
Is there going to be a day where you're not joking about cancer? Like, can you move on past that material, or you just need to get the most out of it now? Is there a certain amount of years?
I'll definitely move on.
You're just resting on the laurels of that sweet cancer material.
You'll see me in 25 years. So anyway, I've got cancer. I'm like, no, you don't, mate. That was 25 years ago.
What else have you got?
You are cured now, dickhead. Write a new joke. No, you can only write about your own experiences. And so, like in 2019, I did a show that was just about cancer, and then last year before COVID hit, I did a show that was like 10% about cancer, and then this year I was planning to not do a show about cancer, but then I had this relapse, so I've probably got another 5-10 minutes about having cancer. But like I said, I don't like to be pigeonholed. I feel like I've talked about cancer enough on stage. Unless I've got something new and interesting to say about it, I'm not going to kind of keep talking about it.
And the show you got this year's 110%.
Yeah, that's it.
Why have you called it that? And what can people expect from that show?
Well, I called it 110% because I was like, I'm just giving it my all, basically. And it's a mathematical impossibility, but I'm going to attempt to break the laws of science in order to make my audience happy. So, it's kind of like a lot of material about obviously COVID, and a lot of material about, getting diagnosed with cancer again. A lot of material about my relationship with my partner, and kind of, we've been together for over 10 years. So, getting that tap on the shoulder from her mother, like, so when you're going to...
Oh, you're not married yet?
No, we're not married.
Shit,
so
she's passed the cancer test as well. She's stuck by you through thick and thin.
I know.
You'd be the worst bloke to not do it now, wouldn't you?
Be brutal, absolutely brutal. So it's a kind of a lot about our relationship. She features a lot. So I think it's kind of...
And she's like laughing, but she's also like, fuck you.
She actually came
I can't propose, it's too funny.
She actually came along to a gig in Melbourne the other week, And I talked about all this pressure that I'm getting to propose to her. And then the audience laughed. And then I said, the real sad thing is that I've been saying this material for 3 years now. So,
yeah, it's pretty rough.
no, so that's kind of what the show. But I like to, in like my shows, just take the contrarian position to things. So I find that really fun. Like I talk a lot about COVID and stuff, and I feel like everyone was like saying like got to shut down the wet markets and stuff, and I just like saying the opposite. I like saying, no, I reckon keep them open. I reckon they're great. They're cheap. You can get a bat for 10 cents. You know what I mean? So I like doing that in my comedy, just like kind of saying, the wrong thing, but hopefully people get that it's irony.
Yeah, that's pretty classic technique, really.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Where are you at in your life now?
I'm just trying to be really grateful. Like I'm just trying to, I said that I haven't been changed much by my cancer, but I would like to be changed in a positive way. I'd like to be more grateful for the everyday stuff, and I try to be more grateful and remind myself, during the day, just because like, even just like having like a nice meal, like when you're going through chemo, like you can barely eat and you feel like awful. So I'm just trying to take, not take that for granted. Being able to have like a big breakfast is like great, and being able to go on stage no matter what is great. Even if there's 5 people and a dog there, like who cares? Even if you're bombing, like who cares? Like you're still on stage,
still alive, and
you're still doing stuff. So
yeah.
I think that's kind of what I'm working on for myself, is just constantly reminding myself, oh yeah, I'm just, even if you're not having the best time right now, you should still be grateful for the experience.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to do.
Have you got a closing message for the fellas about checking their nuts?
I would say do it. I would say do it, and do it early. Don't wait 7 months like I did, which was real dumb. Do it and do it early. I know it's awkward when you have to go to an old man and say, hey, can you look at my balls? I know that's awkward, but I promise you it's the better outcome.
Yeah.
So just make sure to do it. And I think, just do it in the shower like once a week or once every couple of weeks.
And if you've got that one nut, that's definitely getting bigger than the other one. Don't pretend like it was always like that.
Yeah, don't wait to be coughing up blood or anything. Just
because it probably won't happen.
Yeah, exactly. It probably won't happen. Just be on top of things. That's my message.
If you're a fan of the work we're doing or have a suggestion for the show, please rate us on Apple Podcasts and leave a comment. You can follow Youngblood Men's Health Matters on Facebook, Instagram and YouTube, and visit our website youngbloodmedia.com.au to stay up to date. And most importantly, if this conversation resonated with you, share it with someone you love and start a conversation of your own. A huge thank you to our local business supporters who've joined our mission to change the lives of young men for the better and help make this possible. We're all in it together. This is Youngblood. Thanks for being part of the mission. Catch you next time.